Hello and welcome to this special pilot roadshow with Cathay Pacific. My name is Richard Stevenson and I am delighted to be your host today. We are being joined by hundreds of pilots from all around the world and of course by our expert Cathay Pacific panel, who I will soon introduce to you. However, before we start, I just want to make sure that you're all logged into our slido.com event page. Just visit slido.com and use the event code Cathay Pacific so you can submit your questions at any point during this event. We will get through as many questions as we possibly can in the next hour. I think we're all set. So let's meet our panel. Firstly, we have Jeffrey Liu, the Deputy Flying Training Manager, focusing on Cathay Pacific's Airbus fleet. Secondly, we have our Deputy Chief Pilot for the Boeing fleet, Ben Page. Thirdly, joining us is Elaine Cheng, who is the airline's Talent Acquisition Manager for Operations. And fourthly, we have Heeman Koo, an Assistant Manager for Talent Acquisition. This expert panel will be guiding you through the current opportunities that exist, the process for applications, and sharing more about the company and its plans for the future. So, without any further ado, I'm delighted to hand over to Elaine, who will start our event today and share the story of Cathay Pacific. Elaine, over to you.
Thank you, Richard. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We're pleased to be here to present pilot opportunities at Cathay Pacific. I'm Elaine Cheng, Talent Acquisition Manager Operations. Today, we will talk about our direct entry first officer opportunities. In our presentation, we will cover topics on company background, our package and benefits, living in Hong Kong, and a lot of other information. Jeffrey and Ben will be sharing with us what flying is like in Cathay. Heeman and myself will share some insights from recruitment perspective. Right, let's get started.
Right. So, hi again, everyone. So, this is Heeman. So, like what Eileen said, I will provide a little bit more information about our history, some vision and mission, and also some more information about what it is like working with us at Cathay Pacific. So, here from the slide on the first picture, you can see a black and white picture, which is our first ever aircraft, Betsy. So it's a DC-3. Back at the time, it's our first aircraft when we founded Cathay Pacific in 1964. So we have been here for 77 years, and for now, we have two parent companies. So we have Swire Pacific from the UK and also Air China from China, obviously. So this background actually resonates very well with what Hong Kong is like. So it's a very good mix of the West and the East. Within the group, we also have Hong Kong Express as our low-cost carrier business, as well as Air Hong Kong as our cargo operation. We are also one of the founding members of the One World Alliance, so that we can bring our customer to every part of the world with other airlines altogether. About our vision, we want to be one of the best airlines in the world, and as one of the world leading airline, we will continue to move forward by becoming one of the world's greatest service brands. So what we want to achieve is that when people think about Cathay, it's not just about airline, it's overall customer experience, and we want people to have a very positive experience about our brand. The purpose of our brand is to move people forward in life. So we are not just talking about physically moving people from point A to point B. We are also talking about moving people and connecting them with meaningful experience, places, and people. And it's not just about customer, it's also about our own people, our staff here, where we want people to progress and move forward within the company in their career also. So in Cathay Pacific, we have three core values. So the first one is thoughtful. We respect and we care about everyone. We are progressive, just like our home Hong Kong, so that we are modern, we are forward thinking. We also have a can-do spirit where we try to solve every problem with confidence and positivity. So we have talked a lot about, vision and mission, some very high-level things. And now that you may ask, so what exactly it is like or what is good about working with us. So overall in Cathay, we have a very supportive culture. So everyone here in the room, we have very good work relationship. We support each other. We value collaboration a lot, and this is what you will experience when you come to work with us. We have a very diverse workforce. So in the whole group, we have over 70 nationalities. And among them, of course, there are people speaking different language, have different religions, and a lot of different background. And we also celebrate diversity and equality a lot. So this will be a very good place for whoever who take pride of themselves to work here. So we also offer very great facilities here. So from the slides, the background, you can see it is our office. So it's a very big one. It's the Cathay City, right? So in the middle is the office part. So there, of course, workstation and meeting rooms. And on the left-hand side is actually a whole building. It's not showing not a lot here, but there's a whole building of our flight training center. So there are, simulators, classroom, mocks up, a lot of things, and basically a lot of training activities will be taking place in this part. On the right hand side, you can see is our hotel attached to our premises. And, basically in the whole Cathay City, there are a lot of facilities, including recreational things such as, we have gym, we have a tennis court, we have swimming pool. And from time to time, we also organize and celebrate different occasions where, we can have some fun. So, well, when you work with us, you will have fun every day here, basically. So, later on, of course, we'll also expand a little bit on the benefits side and details, but well, basically, we offer a very comprehensive and competitive one, and also a flexible one, so that you can pick the best option that's suitable for you and your dependent. Like what I mentioned earlier, we want to move people forward. So within the company, we also offer a lot of learning and development opportunities. So when we are talking about pilots today, right? So it's not just about flying in Cathay. You also get a lot other exposure. You could get responsibility on training. You can get involved in some safety projects. A lot to explore within the company. So well, up to now, I think you probably can't wait to know more about what it is actually like flying with us, right? So with that, I'll pass the time to Ben and Jeff for the flying part.
All right, thank you, Heeman. Hello, everyone. I'm Jeff. I'm Deputy Flying Training Manager on the Airbus fleet here at Cathay Pacific. So I'm responsible for all the training programs for the Airbus 330, the 350, and of course the 321neo. Talking about the fleets that we have, historically we have been a wide-body airline, and we have a healthy mix of long-haul and short-haul flying. We have, of course, our flagship, which is a 777-300ER with first class that goes to all our destinations around the world, mainly the primary destinations in Europe and America. We also have the 350, the Airbus 350, which is the latest equipment that we have. Extremely efficient, and we use that on many long-haul routes as well. Around the region, we have the Airbus 330, which has been a stalwart for us for many years. Medium, short haul. We are in Hong Kong, which is somewhere that we treat as a hub. We bring people in from our regional destinations to take them all over the world on our long-haul fleet. We also have, of course, the cargo side. The cargo side is the 747. All right, the 747 we've had for a long time. That takes us all from China to China, through the Americas, to many destinations that actually our passenger aircraft don't go to. Just a testament to the cargo demand that there is globally, and the need that we have to get these aircraft and to move all the cargo around. Finally, we also have the Airbus 321neo. That's the latest aircraft that we have. It is a narrow body, but it is we've got this in Cathay Pacific to provide our premium service to regional destinations. That opens up a lot of destinations, maybe possibly in China, and second destinations in Asia to bring people into Hong Kong and to our other destinations in the network. Further to the equipment we fly and where we go to, the one thing you can look forward to here is world-class training. You really can. We've got extremely thorough training programs. We have very experienced trainers, and we have excellent facilities. He even mentioned that we have our flight training center. That's just linked to our main building here in Cathay Pacific, and in there we have simulators for all our aircraft. We have many classrooms, and the programs that we have here in Cathay are representative of the fact that we are investing in our people, and we want to help you not just to be a pilot, but to be a better person and to enjoy your time here at Cathay Pacific. So with that, I'll pass it on to Ben, who will give you a little bit more information about Hong Kong.
Thank you, Jeff. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ben Page. I'm a Deputy Chief Pilot here at Cathay Pacific. I look after the Boeing fleets, so that covers the Boeing 777 on our passenger network and the Boeing 747 on our freight network. As an expatriate, I thought it would be worthwhile sharing with you what it's like actually living in Hong Kong, our home, which is Hong Kong, our hub and our central being within the airline, and just give you a bit of an understanding and a flavour as to what Hong Kong actually is and what Hong Kong can offer for you. I think this slide here sort of gives you a really nice picture as to what Hong Kong actually is, what's central to Hong Kong as a city. Food is an abundant supply in Hong Kong. There's a lot of variety, and it's a very social community type feel here as a city in its whole. You contrast that to the right-hand side, which is the nightlife here in Hong Kong. You can see it's quite a busy, densely populated city, but what I find personally that really makes living in Hong Kong a really, really nice place to be. It's a very safe city. You can walk around at night and feel very, very comfortable with your family, your friends, and enjoy that community feel. Now, these two pictures at the top sort of really explain Hong Kong. It's probably the picture, if you've never been here before, that you'd have in the back of your mind. But there's actually a lot more to see and do here in Hong Kong. The bottom right-hand side of your screens, you'd see the sort of national parks that we have available here in Hong Kong. Some of the monuments, some of the outdoor activities that you can do is actually quite wide-ranging for such a small location, and is really a lot to do and a lot to see and enjoy here in Hong Kong, which is one of the things I really love about living in this city. So turning more specifically now to some of the key elements of what I personally enjoy and see here in Hong Kong. Hong Kong as a city in itself, it's very much an East meets West city. We have a lot of cultures, a lot of nationalities, all brought into this quite small city, which makes it very, very diversified, and really gives it its being, its whole, and that feeling of community within the city. With that in mind, there's obviously a lot of different lifestyle options that you have. Living here in Hong Kong, you can live on the island, Hong Kong Island. You've got the central financial district. It's where all the bars, all the restaurants, all the facilities are. You can live in more local areas. You've got Kowloon, you've got the new territories, where it offers a lot of other opportunities as well, a lot more space. And that's also contrasted with a lot of expatriate enclaves that we have, such as Discovery Bay. So a lot of different options, a lot of different solutions that are available for you should you choose to live in Hong Kong. One of the most beneficial elements of Hong Kong is we have quite a low tax rate here. We have a 17% maximum tax rate, which does a lot of things for us, obviously, developing towards your net worth and growing yourself as a whole. Language, as a non-native expatriate here in Hong Kong, obviously English is my native tongue. And not needing to actually be able to speak the local language has made my introduction into living in Hong Kong very, very easy. Government, employment, and general people around the city all have a very good command of English, which makes living here quite easy for those that haven't been grown up in this area. Transportation, again, is one of those areas or one of those elements that perhaps is not front and foremost in your minds, but is actually another really good feature of Hong Kong. We've got a fantastic MTR or train network, which is very efficient, very cost effective, and that's supported by buses and taxis, which really negates the need for needing to own a car. It's very quick, very efficient, very safe, which is a really, really good benefit of living here in Hong Kong. The weather's fantastic. Southeast Asia, we've got quite a warm environment, humid, but tropical, and quite a very comfortable place to live with quite a lot of sunny days, which is also a fantastic opportunity to get out and about and explore Hong Kong. And finally, healthcare. We've got a very, very good healthcare system from the government scheme all the way through to private health coverage. We've also got quite a good medical benefits scheme that's provided by the company. So your health and that of your dependents are all well taken care of in that regard. A couple of points I'd just like to touch on with regards to living in Hong Kong. Hong Kong, it is an expensive city. Property prices are quite high compared to other areas. But I would say that this can be contrasted around the areas where you choose to live, where you, the choices that you make do give you a lot of opportunities to live in different areas and live in different sized properties. Hong Kong as well allows foreign nationals to purchase property, so that also gives you a lot of opportunity as well, should you choose to do that if you were to move to Hong Kong. Education, I've touched on already the density of Hong Kong. You can see it is quite a populated area with in a small geographical area, but with education we've got a wide variety of options as well. We've got the local schools through to ESF schools, which is English-based education scheme, all the way through to international schools as well. So there's a lot of choice and a lot of opportunities as well. The final point I'd like to just touch on before I hand back over to Aline is if you were to bring out your dependents, so your legally married spouse, you're able to enjoy a working visa, and that will allow them to work, live in Hong Kong, as well as appropriate visas as well for your children if you do have them. Thank you very much, Aline. I'll pass back over to you.
Well, thank you, Jeff, and thank you, Ben. Right, so what we offer, our package. So we offer a competitive package. So on the remuneration part, we offer basic salary, a monthly allowance, plus productivity pay. There's also discretionary bonus and profit sharing. The company will also contribute 10% of your basic salary to your pension scheme. We will talk about, we will get into details in the next slide on the remuneration part. And then for annual leave, so joining as a first officer, you will start from 28 days of annual leave. Medical coverage, this will be available for you and your eligible dependents. And for children education allowance, there is a cash allowance of 60,000 Hong Kong dollars per annum per eligible child, and for up to 3 children. If your child or your children, they're studying in a registered school, this can be in Hong Kong or outside of Hong Kong. There is a capped additional annual allowance of Hong Kong dollars 40,000 offered on a reimbursement basis with valid receipts. And for our new joiners coming from overseas, there is relocation assistance. We will provide you with joining ticket, hotel accommodation, and also free of charge cargo shipment. And there is also an interest-free startup loan, 100,000 Hong Kong dollars. This is to be repaid over 18 months. As Jeff mentioned earlier on, we provide, world-class training here. So we will provide you with type rating training courses. And there is a training loan, and it is for 3 years. And for employee travel, discounted travel. So you will have access to our employee travel systems. You can enjoy discounted travel. Also, your eligible dependents. So you can travel on Cathay network as well as One World and other interline. And then joining Cathay as a first officer, you will get to fly, our world-class fleet. And there are a lot of opportunities, development opportunities here at Cathay. Right. So let's talk about the remuneration, which I'm sure a lot of you will be interested in knowing a bit more. So you'll see on this slide, there are two tables. The top one is the guaranteed annual compensation. So what is guaranteed? So you will get the basic monthly salary and also the monthly allowance. The company will also contribute 10% of your basic salary to your provident fund. So you will see on the table, the amount shown here is on annual basis in Hong Kong dollars, in euros, and in US dollars. The monthly basic salary is around 50,000 Hong Kong dollars, and the monthly allowance is at 20,000 Hong Kong dollars. So this is the guaranteed compensation. And on the bottom table, you'll see the projected annual compensation. So this is based on achieving the annual target block hours. So on top of your basic salary and your monthly allowance, you will also get productivity pay if you have flown above the minimum monthly block hour. So say, for example, 777, the minimum monthly block hour is 49, and the target annual block hour is 840. So the monthly productivity pay is calculated on the number of block hours flown above the minimum monthly block hours. So for this amount shown on the table, the productivity pay, so if you have achieved 840 block hours, this is the amount you will get. And for the Provident Fund, productivity pay is also part of your earnings. So the company will also contribute 10%. Well, on top of the 10% of your basic salary, there's also 10% of productivity pay into your Provident Fund, your pension scheme. Right, so we've talked about the package and benefits. So let's talk about the application requirements. So you will need an ATPL or frozen ATPL with same state ATPL examination credits, and also with a multi-engine instrument rating. For frozen ATPL, you must be eligible for Hong Kong ATPL for on conversion. And for an ATPL conversion, you must have 500 hours P1 under supervision or 250 hours P1 and or P1 US, under P1 under supervision, including at least 70 hours as P1. So these are the Hong Kong CAD license conversion requirements. And for total time, you will need 1,500 hours with 500 hours on an aircraft with maximum takeoff weight over 45 tons. And also a valid Class 1 medical certificate and an ICAO English language proficiency level 4 or above. Also a COVID-19 vaccination certificate. Right, so for selection process, if you are shortlisted, we will then invite you to a video interview. The video interview will be a general interview for us to get to know you, and of course for you to answer any questions that you may have. And then we will ask you to provide supporting documents like training files, license verification letter, and If all fine, we will then fly you to Hong Kong for a 2-day assessment. The 2-day assessment consists of simulator assessment. There's also a technical interview, as well as ICAO English language proficiency assessment. There's also pre-employment medical check. The ICAO English language proficiency assessment, this is a Hong Kong CAD licensing requirement, where you will have to attend this assessment with a Hong Kong CAD approved assessor for Cathay. Right, okay. And application, how to apply. So you can visit our careers page on cathaypacific.com to submit an online application. We will have a Q&A section. If you have any questions now, please feel free to put them on Slido, and we'll try our best to answer. And of course, after this session, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at flightcrew_recruitment@cathaypacific.com. Thank you. And I will now pass the time back to Richard.
Well, Eileen and team, Jeff, Ben, and Heman, thank you so much for that informative presentation. I'm sure that we can all see now that this airline really is in a period of growth with exciting times ahead. And that's clearly why we all need more and more pilots. So now it's your turn. It's time for your questions. And we already have an awful lot coming in on Slido. So we're going to try and get through as many as we possibly can in the time we have available. So to kick us off, we have our first question. And Jeff, I think I'm going to send this one in your direction. So what should a first officer expect when they join Cathay Pacific?
All right, thank you for that, Richard. So what can you expect? Well, once you are coming to join us at Cathay, you obviously spend the first bit getting all the administration things done, making sure you get into the building. And once we let you in, you'll be starting an induction program. The induction program involves workshops. It involves, obviously, working out how to do things the Cathay way. And that's what the workshops are for. You are all experienced pilots. That's why we're looking for direct entry first officers. But our way of doing things, the way Hong Kong does things, our airline, our regulator, our procedures and policy are obviously often unique to us. So there'll be many workshops that you'll be attending. Subsequent to that, you will embark on the journey of the conversion or a refresher course, depending on your history, what your previous aircraft type was, and what aircraft type you're going on to. This can range from anywhere between a few days in ground school to 6 weeks, to 6 or 7 weeks with the ground school and the conversion. So this can take a bit of time. As I say, once again, it depends on the aircraft you're going to go on to. Further to that, you'll then go on to doing some line flying under supervision, which we all understand is flying on the line with a training captain. Furthermore, reinforcing the Cathay procedures, how we fly, what we fly, and where we fly. Once you're online, you can expect to be busy. So once you've line checked, you will be flying the line as a first officer on the aircraft that I mentioned previously, and that could be anywhere around the world. As long as the aircraft can go there, once you are line checked, you can go there. So that would be the induction process, Richard.
Jeff, thank you very much for that. We've heard a lot about the selection process. We've heard a lot about how Cathay Pacific goes about bringing in and bringing on board your new pilots. But we're getting quite a few questions just about the time that takes. So how long will the selection process take?
So I'll take this. So about the selection process, like what we mentioned, there are quite a number of stages there. So approximately, we expect it to happen within 8 to 10 weeks. But since, there are different stages, and especially to part when we are bringing you guys to Hong Kong, it does take quite some time because you're going to spend a few days here. So we understand everyone have your roster and also your availability. So we'll try our best to accommodate for sure. But then basically when things are smooth and everything is smooth, then we expect it to happen in 8 weeks to 10 weeks.
Great, thank you for that. And there are a couple more questions coming in related to this. One of them is very much about if people are invited for the interview. So if you're invited for the interview, do you provide the tickets and the hotel in Hong Kong?
So yes, if you're selected and we are bringing you to Hong Kong, we'll cover your ticket from our destination to Hong Kong and also back at the that destinations. We'll also cover your accommodation here in Hong Kong for the days that you are taking the assessment. So like what we introduced earlier, we do have a hotel here already. So usually that would be the primary location where candidate will be staying.
And Hema, maybe one last question for you. We're being asked, do you have any age restrictions?
You have to be legal to work. I think that's a minimum restriction. So in Hong Kong, you have to be 18.
And at the other end of the spectrum, are there any age requirements or any age restrictions?
So for now, in Hong Kong, the retirement age would be 65.
Okay. All right. So, Ben, I think we're going to move across to you. Lots of people are very interested about how direct entry first officers would be developed and trained within Cathay Pacific. So can you tell us a bit more about that development and training program?
Yeah, certainly, Richard. And thank you for the question. So our first officers that join us, that's really the entry point and obviously the start of your career, which sort of sets the bedstone of your the rest of your development through the airline. We obviously spend a lot of time as you grow and learn how our operations work and function. And then the first milestone after that would be what we call our Relief Qualified program. So we augment flight crew, obviously, with our long-haul operations to ensure that we can have a captain, a first officer, and a relief first officer that can allow the commander to obviously take in-flight rest during those operations. So we put a lot of effort and a lot of training into that particular program. We want to make sure that our crew are confident, comfortable with the responsibilities as the second in command. And there's a simulator, a workshop, and some flying that goes into that piece of the training package. Obviously, as you develop through the remainder of your career, the next step is your command. Again, this is something that's very important and very fundamental to our training program as well here at Cathay Pacific. We've recently introduced a command development program. So this is to bridge the gap between being a first officer and moving into the left-hand seat. So we put a lot of effort again into through workshops, through simulator training and some line flying with our senior training captains to develop some of the skill sets before you move into the left-hand seat. And that preloads you before you actually commence your command course. And this has been proving quite successful over the last period as we've started recommenced our command training program. So that's what you can look forward to moving through into the left-hand seat. There's obviously also other opportunities, whether it's into training or into flight management positions as well further down the road.
Ben, thank you very much. We're focusing a bit at the moment, obviously, on the first officer side of things. But one question here, are you considering any direct entry captain positions?
So I'm going to answer that at the moment, Richard. No, we're not considering direct entry captain positions at this point.
Okay, and then I'm just going to the other end of the spectrum, I guess. What about cadets? We're getting quite a few people who are asking about plans for cadets in the future, asking questions about the number of hours cadets might need to have under their belt before they approach you. Is there anything you can tell us about plans for cadets, or maybe even what your advice would be to some of the cadets who have joined us here today?
Yeah, certainly, Richard. So at the moment, obviously, our focus here is on direct entry first officer recruitment, but we also, at the other end of the spectrum, are running a cadet pilot program, which is also drawing in the experience for our flight crew requirements over the future. Our cadet pilot program, it does have a requirement that you are a Hong Kong permanent resident as a minimum entry requirement. And there's no flight experience requirements for this program. This is a complete ab initio course, ab initio program that takes a pilot from 0 hours all the way to through to a commercial license before you introduce them into Cathay Pacific as a second officer.
Brilliant. also getting quite a few questions about the fleet and about which particular part of your fleet you're potentially most interested in recruiting for right now. I mean, it sounded from what you were saying earlier that it could potentially be across your entire fleet, but obviously you have a pretty significant fleet, lots of different aircraft types. Can you say a little bit more about some of those aircraft types and potentially, where some of your new pilots might end up?
Certainly, Richard. Again, we're recruiting onto all fleets at the moment. A lot of flight crew that are joining are being distributed across the various aircraft types. As you've identified, you could end up on any of our aircraft that we operate here at Cathay Pacific. Obviously, we are cognizant to your previous flying experience. With pilots that come in with experience from, say, the Airbus family, there's obviously opportunities there to streamline the training program, the type rating program, and that may impact the decision as to what fleets they obviously ultimately join onto. As I said, we are in a growing stage at the moment, and the recovery from COVID, so there's a lot of opportunities out there, and certainly a lot of fantastic aircraft to fly.
So you're talking a little bit, Ben, about the aircraft that are currently within your fleet, but there's some interest from some of our viewers this morning about the aircraft that will also come into your fleet. So are you able to say anything about the kind of aircraft that you currently have on order?
Yeah, certainly. So the 777-9X is obviously the next aircraft that we'll see join into our fleet in the next few years. We do have quite an extensive order online at the moment. Obviously, with the development phase and the development program from Boeing, we'll start to see those aircraft come into the fleet and grow the fleet, which will also help us support our hub here in Hong Kong as we open up to 3 runway operations, and the airport itself significantly expands, and to sort of centralize and pivot us for those opportunities that will come through from there.
Now, you've mentioned COVID. I think it's impossible to go to any event at the moment without COVID coming up in one way or another. But of course, COVID hit the aviation industry in a significant way. And one of the questions we've had is the COVID vaccination certificate still one of the requirements to join Cathay Pacific?
I'll pass back to Aline for this part.
Right. Thanks, Ben. Right. Yes, it is an operational requirement, the company requirement for our pilots to be fully vaccinated. So you will need to provide a COVID-19 vaccination certificate during the selection process.
Great. Thank you, Aline. A number of questions coming in now more about the process and more about what candidates would have to do to pass through that process with you. A couple of things here. So first of all, is there a written exam as part of the interview?
They're not exactly a written exam. So like what we mentioned, we have the interview, we have the simulator assessment, and also the final interview. If you consider the IQ English test, then that might be something related to written, but there's not really, a lot of writing tasks in our assessment process.
Okay, great, thank you. And then when in the selection process will you know which fleet you've been assigned to?
Regarding the fleet, like what just Ben mentioned, because our operation environment is changing quite rapidly every day. So about which fleet the candidate will be in quite a later stage. So we can't really guarantee you at any point that which fleet you will be definitely operating until you really are joining us today.
Got it. And I'm sure that will be what most people would expect. But so let's jump ahead a little bit for a couple of questions here, because people are asking, once they're successful and they've joined Cathay Pacific as a pilot, will you cover education and house allowance once they've moved over?
So for allowance, we do have a monthly allowance, and we do not restrict the use of that allowance. So you can spend it in any area you like. So there is not a specific housing allowance. So but we do have a monthly allowance. Regarding the education, we are talking about earlier we mentioned there is a children education allowance. So if your kids are eligible kids, children, and there will be a cash allowance, and if depending on the situation whether he's attending local school or somewhere outside of Hong Kong, then there are also additional allowance that could be claimed once when the situation is allowed. So of course there are a lot of practical details that about this kind of benefit. This is a brief idea about what we could support on your children education as well as allowance perspective.
Great, thank you, Herman. So a number of other questions now about residency rights and working permits and all of those kind of things, which again I'm sure you guys are very used to answering these questions. So how is it possible to get a Hong Kong permanent residency or the right to work if we hold a European passport?
So about the right to work in Hong Kong. So if you are successful in the application and we are bringing you to Hong Kong, we'll apply a work visa for for the candidate. So for you, right? So with that work visa, you have the right to live and work in Hong Kong. And as earlier mentioned, if that work visa is successful and things are smooth, you can also apply for a dependent visa for spouse and eligible dependent. So that is about the right to work in Hong Kong. So about the permanent residency in Hong Kong, you have to spend time in Hong Kong for 8 years. So for the definition of spending time in Hong Kong for I think it's 7 years. It's 7 years. It's 7 years, right? So
continuously.
Continuously. So I think for a more accurate definition of staying in Hong Kong, then it's better to really refer to our immigration department. But that is the time that you can expect. So 7 years in Hong Kong, and then you'll be eligible to apply for a permanent residency.
Great. And you mentioned earlier on, I forget now, one of you was talking about the great diversity of people and of nationalities that you find within Cathay Pacific. There's quite a few questions that we're getting in from people in various countries around the world asking specifically, do you accept people from this particular country? Perhaps someone could just say a little bit more about that diversity, about all of those nationalities. And maybe there might be some more information somewhere where people can potentially check a list, or maybe you have some different advice just to get in touch with you and check those specifics. But we have people literally from, I think I've already seen at least 3 or 4 continents coming up asking these kind of questions. So maybe you could say a bit more about that.
Well, I think we are very happy to know that basically people from everywhere is showing interest in joining us. Regarding where you're living in, where you come from, that never is that's not part of the consideration about whether you are a successful candidate or not. After all, we are looking for top talent and the right caliber, the right personality, and the skill set to join us. So well, of course there could be practical concern about ICAO license, but then that would be about the license itself. It's not about where you're from or your nationalities or things like that.
Great, thank you for that. There's one question here, which is about the training bond. Will the training bond be applicable for any experience level, or will existing type ratings be considered?
Right. Okay, I'll take this one. Right. So the training loan applies to all of our new joiners. So the loan amount, this will amortize in equal amounts over a period of 36 months from the date of commencement of employment. So I mean, in short, if you stay with the company for 3 years, there's no repayment required.
Great. Thank you, Elaine. Very clear. How does the typical work holiday scheme look like at Cathay Pacific?
So I can talk a little on this, and then I'll hand it over to Jeffrey and Ben. So joining as a first officer, I mean, you will be entitled to 28 days of annual leave. And of course, on your roster, you will get, days off, but you could expect, different roster patterns depending on which fleet you're joining. And I'll let Ben and Jeff to share a bit more on this.
Sure. So just touching obviously on specifically days off, which I guess is also this question leads into. It does vary depending on obviously the fleet and the type of operations that you're conducting. Obviously, the A321 fleet is short haul, high density flying fleet, so they'll be on minimum days off throughout the month as you're operating. The long haul fleets, obviously, there's requirements for recovery days at the end of patterns, and obviously an ability to sit there and take those days off and spend with family. Obviously, a balance along that side. So it very much depends, as I said, based upon the fleet that you're on and the type of operations that the aircraft's currently deployed and what they're doing. And again, that is also another fact that's in a bit of a developing state as we've redeploying our assets across the board.
Great, thank you, Ben. Another I guess, more technical question, but do you have any flight recency requirements?
So it's a wide can of worms, flight recency requirements on that front, Richard. But I guess from an applicant's perspective, there are requirements which are just as published on our recruitment site for actually obtaining a conversion from a foreign license to a Hong Kong license. Essentially, that license does need to be valid. There are expiry periods, so that license can be expired up to a period of time. But that, again, very much depends on the individual circumstances, the license type that's being submitted. So if there are people that, for example, haven't been flying recently, obviously their licenses are expired, we do encourage you to do submit an application so we can consider that and look at obviously the specific regulatory requirements to convert that license to a Hong Kong aircraft rating.
Great, thank you very much. Let's just turn our attention for a moment to the SIM assessment, that part of your process. My assumption is that this is a mandatory stage in your process. We're being asked about that. But perhaps you could tell us a little bit more about that SIM assessment, what would be involved, how long it would take, and what you'd be looking for during that particular part of the process.
Sure. All right, I'll take this one. I'm actually part of the team that does the SIM assessment, so I can give you a little bit of information on this. As we speak, I mean, this is flexible, but right now we tend to be doing the SIM assessments in a 777. And speaking pilot language, we're flying this thing around Hong Kong area, but it's a case of us just assessing to see that, we recognize you don't have to be perfect right now because some people may not have been flying for a long time, but what we're looking for is a foundation to be building on. So to that end, we are flying a profile in manual flight, obviously, with no autopilot, no auto thrust, no flight directors. So we're basically flying raw data. We're doing a very simple profile that effectively is a couple of circuits. And we just want to see that you haven't forgotten everything that you learned when you learned how to do multi-engine in instrument flying. And that's what we're doing. Once again, we're not looking for someone who is perfect. We recognize that you're not necessarily a Cathay pilot who is current, nor a 777 pilot, but we're looking for the basic skills to build on. And that's what we're looking for in the SIM assessments.
And Jeff, can you tell us, how long does that particular part take? How many days in the sim? How many days would they need to be with you?
If I was to be specific, it's 35 minutes in the simulator.
35 minutes?
Yeah. So we would send you the profile so you'll be aware of what we're looking for. We'll give you the basic information on the aircraft that you'll be doing the sim assessment on. basic numbers so that you have an idea, even though you have never flown the plane before, possibly. We'll give a mass briefing in the morning, which takes about half an hour, 35 minutes. And then one by one, you come into the simulator. We've got a sim instructor there as well. So both of us are having a look at you, both with regards to training potential, how you fit in with fellow pilots in Cathay. And we'll have a fly around. And it's basically, I say, 35 to 40 minutes. And then that's it.
Great. Thank you very much. Next time I'm in Hong Kong, I'm going to give you a call, and you can put me through my paces and see how I get on. I don't think I'll make it very far through the process, but we can always try. But it sounds great. Thank you very much for that, Jeff. We're getting some more questions now about licenses, about permissions, approvals, all of those kind of things. So is there any chance of employment for first officers with experience in complex aircraft with a maximum takeoff weight of under 45,000 tons?
So I can answer at the moment, Richard, no. We require 45 tons to convert the license, and that's our entry requirements as an airline, as a direct entry first officer. In the past, we have offered a direct entry second officer program, which someone with that sort of experience would be potentially eligible for. At the moment, we don't have any concrete plans for recruitment for that particular stream just yet. But I would encourage you, obviously, to keep an eye out if that does eventuate in the future.
And one other, I guess, slightly linked question to some things we were talking about earlier on. We talked about captains, we talked about first officers, we talked about cadets. Very specific question about second officers and whether you have any plans specifically for second officer recruitment coming up at any time soon.
Yeah, so just as I've touched on, Richard, at the moment we don't have any concrete plans for direct entry second officer recruitment specifically. All our second officers that we're bringing through the airline at the moment are coming through from our cadet pilot scheme. As I touched on, if you hold a Hong Kong permanent residency card, you're eligible to apply for that program, and there's no prerequisite experience requirements from a flying background or from a technical capability to apply for that particular course.
Great. Thank you, Ben. Again, more questions about licenses. I think, guys, you've pretty much covered a lot of this earlier on, but I am going to repeat the questions just in case people missed it earlier in the presentation. So there's a question about ICAO licenses. Do you accept pilots with ICAO licenses? And also, is it mandatory to have a valid multi-engine instrument rating for the ATPL license holder?
Okay, again, this comes into one of those categories of it depends. It is a requirement to hold an ICAO license. That's what our regulator, the Hong Kong CAD, will accept for license conversion. There are certain categories where we can convert the license if the instrument rating, for example, was expired, but that is also time dependent. And it also very much depends upon your experience and your recency. So, for example, if you're eligible for a zero flight time program, so for the pilots out there, this is the type of program where you don't need to conduct aircraft-based training, then you would be eligible to be processed through that stream. Whereas those that, for example, aren't eligible given their recent flying experience, they would need to have a current instrument rating to be able to be processed through that program. As I sort of touched on earlier, Richard, with these type of specific individual type of questions, it would encourage everyone out there that is interested in applying to please do, as we can then have a closer look at the individual circumstances and whether we can progress the application or not at that point.
Great, thank you very much, Ben. There's again a couple of people who are flying other aircraft types that are currently not within your fleet at the moment, for example, the A380. So if you have an experienced pilot currently flying on the A380 who wants to apply to Cathay Pacific, what would you say to them?
Absolutely, very, very much love to have you come on board and to welcome you to the Cathay family. We've recruited flight crew from around the world flying various different aircraft types. Recently, we've had quite a few 737 flight crew join us, which is not a type that we operate. As we've sort of discussed, our training center, our flight training center, we do all our training here in house. So whether we put you through a short course, put you through a CCQ, a conversion course, or a full type rating, there's so many different options out there for us to basically be able to bring you into the airline, license you, and get you flying with us. So yes, please apply.
Great. Thank you very much. So look, this time is flying by. We only have time probably for a couple more questions. I'm going to dive straight in with one, again, another recurring theme here about whether you have any plans to open or even reopen any foreign pilot bases.
I can answer that, Richard. At the moment, Hong Kong is our base. It is our home city. It is our port. There's currently no plans to open any foreign bases at this point in time.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Ben. And then we're getting quite a lot of questions about about the process and about how Cathay Pacific as a company will help people who are going to be applying for this process, and of course, once they join you as well. So someone has said, I would like to ask if there is any house allowance as a first officer, and approximately how long does it take you from first officer with direct entry to become a captain? Because I'm sure that's what everybody's thinking.
I'll leave Heman to answer the piece on housing.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that earlier, actually. But again, there's a monthly allowance for everyone, but we do not limit the use of the allowance. So you get it every month, and you can spend it anywhere you like. So there's no specific housing allowance, but there is an allowance for you every month. And I'll let you talk about the next.
Yeah, sure. That's you, Jeff.
So this is Jeff here. With regards to time to command, which is basically what the question is, historically, we have had about a 10 to 12 years time to command here in Cathay Pacific. As I'm sure you can appreciate, I can't promise you anything with the volatility of the industry, and you know how quickly things change. But all I'll say is that historically, that's the time that it has taken to command, and going forward, there is lots of opportunity. And I genuinely mean that when opportunities are in abundance. And if you come and join us here in Cathay Pacific, I would like to think that the time to command is not going to be prohibitive in any way for a legacy airline with a wide body fleet. So please, I do welcome you. We all welcome you to apply, and we look forward to having you on board.
Jeff, thank you very much. And I think there's a lot of people online who will look at you, Jeff, and indeed you, Ben, as role models, and I'm sure as inspiration as they continue to progress with their career as a pilot. And I'm sure you'll be flying with a number of people who are online now in the very near future. But look, I'm really sorry to say that this next question really will have to be our last. But I want to ask all members of the panel to share their thoughts and their closing remarks and their last messages for you today. So panelists, tell me, why did you join Cathay Pacific, and what has been your experience within the company? So I think, Ben, I'm going to start with you.
Certainly. Thank you, Richard. I was fortunate enough to join Cathay Pacific just over 10 years ago. This is a well-known brand. It's a fantastic company to work for. There's a lot of opportunities, a lot of fantastic people here within this organization, and it has a real family feel to it, which is one of the big driving forces for bringing me here to Hong Kong in the first place. Lasting messages to everyone online. Please do consider your application here at Cathay Pacific. You'll certainly enjoy your time, and I hopefully see you on a flight deck sometime soon. Thanks.
Ben, thank you so much for that. And Heman, why don't you go next?
Right. So, well, for me, I joined the company for quite some years already, and also I worked in a number of different capacity. Some more frontline roles, some in training, some about CRM, and now, of course, in human resources and recruitment. And I enjoy every bit and every time and everyone that I met here. So, well, this is a very good environment and company to work for. Well, come join us, and then, well, you know what I mean here.
Thank you very much. Elaine, I'm going to come to you next.
Right. So I've been with the Cathay Group for a long time. It's been over 20 years. I've always enjoyed my time here. I've always worked in the back office, and we have a very friendly working environment. It's very multicultural here, and I personally enjoy, working with professionals. Cathay is a great company, and we look forward to, seeing you guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elaine. Thank you. And last but by no means least, Jeff.
So, my history is I joined Cathay 23 years ago as a cadet. Cathay has given me everything that I have up to this point. So I was trained to become a second officer, first officer, did my command. I'm now in management, training captain, and I get to speak to all of you. What I would say is it's a testament to the fact that Cathay, we invest in our people. We invest in our people over many, many decades. And for any airline that is in a growth phase, and this is where we are now, coming out of the back end of COVID, we're definitely in a growth phase, going back towards where we used to be pre-COVID. We can see where the trajectory, and we do look forward very, very much to having you on board as well, because we need people, and the opportunities, as I mentioned before, are in abundance. So we look forward to seeing you on board soon. Thank you.
Well, Jeff, thank you so much for that. And a big thank you to all of our panelists today for sharing their thoughts and advice. That really does bring us to the end of our time and of this session today. I'm sorry if we haven't managed to get to your question, but I hope we've managed to get through a lot of questions and shared a lot of information. So I hope you've got what you needed when you came to this event. If you would like to know more about these pilot roles, you can go to aviationcv.com/Cathay/apply, or you can find out more about Cathay Pacific by visiting www.cathaypacific.com. I hope you found this event informative and enjoyable, so please do let us know. A post-event email will follow soon with more information about this roadshow and the next steps you can take to become a pilot with Cathay Pacific. Now is the perfect time for you to take your next step towards that career with Cathay Pacific. So good luck, and we will look forward to seeing you in the sky. Thank you and goodbye.